All conversations and information exchanged during participation in this podcast or interaction on the DrDrew.com website is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Do not confuse this with treatment or physician medical advice or direction per se. You must always follow your medical professional's advice and direction. Nothing on these podcasts or posted on this site supplements or supersedes the relationship and direction of your medical caretakers. Please understand, I am not playing the role of physician in this environment per se. I'm educating. I am a licensed physician with specialty boards in American Board of Internal Medicine and American Board of Addiction Medicine. Hey, this is Dr. Drew, and you are listening to This Life
with Bob Forrest
and Dr. Drew.
Here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gather round your Android device and get ready to listen to another episode of This Life with Dr. Drew and Bob.
Here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. Notice I said Android, not iPhone.
Well done.
Right?
You're being inclusive. Thank you.
I'm trying to be inclusive. I saw this horrible documentary about Chinese re-education camps. They still exist.
I'm sure.
Right?
Oh,
Do you know that?
Yeah, I know.
Oh. Well, I didn't know until I watched this documentary.
I didn't know that. What is that?
It's just like the old Maoist thing. If you're not with the capitalist, communist kind of thing, if you show any signs of like not sticking to on point, they put you in these re-education. And it's nowadays the modern version of the Maoist re-education communist things it's free treatment.
Yeah.
The government is paying for you to get treatment.
Socialize. Let's introduce our guest.
Yeah, introduce the guest.
Yeah, who's the other voice?
Yeah, that's Dopey Dave.
Dave from Dopey.
The
I prefer
survivor.
Dave from Dopey.
Dave from Dopey, the survivor.
That's the politically correct.
He's a survivor of the Lower East Side, of working in the restaurant industry for 30 years, of having his partner perish.
Yeah.
Now,
Perish.
I met him about, I don't know, how long ago was it? 3 years ago?
I want to say 2.5 years
2.5
ago on
years
a fateful
ago.
afternoon.
Yeah, on a beautiful, brisk Lower East Side morning. He's there. You know, the Lower East Side where I grew up and where I loved, it doesn't really exist anymore. It's all like Whole Foods and there's no dope. You can't buy any dope there anymore, Dave.
You can.
Where?
If you go east enough, on Avenue D, between Alfred Street and like 6th Street, it's still exactly the
You're
same.
not helping.
So
You go over there, it's a time warp over there.
Dopey Dave is a famous junkie from the Lower East Side of New
Give me a
York.
break.
You are.
He's
And he experienced all the things that I experienced that still bring a twinkle to my eye. And anytime we talk about Avenue A, 13th and A, the candy stores. Remember
candy stores?
Yeah, they used to sell them at candy stores.
Sell what?
With bulletproof glass.
Sell what?
Heroin and coke.
Oh, my God.
Right at the store.
And Bud.
And, I never bought pot
stores.
there.
Wow.
Yeah, they were candy stores. Dave, explain to Drew it was like being in Disneyland, Drew, from 1981 to 19...
Oh, my God. No wonder you don't like the way it is now. Now it is like Disneyland. Then it was the drug addict Disneyland.
Tell him, Dave. It was the greatest thing ever.
Oh, my God.
It was a society based on bodega economics. And you could go from bodega to bodega and know what kind of dope you were going to get or who was going to be there. And that changed when I came up. That changed a lot because by the time I came up, you could only buy weed in bodegas. They weren't selling heroin.
They sold heroin right in the markets, Drew. You just walk right in and buy heroin.
It's so crazy.
It was great.
Oh, God.
Well, it was a whole economy based on that. That was the only reason you would go there then. Is to cop.
Yeah, it was all squatting. I had friends who just went into an apartment building and hooked up the electricity and just lived in it for years, not weeks.
The funniest thing, when I graduated college, I got an apartment on Norfolk Street, and I wasn't addicted to heroin yet. And they were selling heroin in the lobby. They would keep all the bundles like in the stairwell, like tucked in. And I wasn't even doing dope. And I was so like a part of the heroin economy of Norfolk Street. And I knew all the dealers, and it was not like people that wanted to kill you. Because like dope dealing was like almost a community back then because they knew all the junkies. They knew who was coming. They knew when you got your check. It was like a whole thing.
And it doesn't exist anymore.
Facebook wants to know why you still use the term junkie. I told him it was a term of endearment.
It's a lovely term.
This idea that you have to change nomenclature is it's ill-founded.
No one knows what nomenclature is.
Right,
Drew,
the idea that you can't use the word addicted or you can't call a junkie has nothing. The junkies taught me to use the word junkie. Okay,
we wear it proudly.
It's proudly worn. It's not a term of it. It in fact adds to stigma by making an issue of language. When you make an issue, you're actually saying that there's some stigma there that somebody's like Bob is not feeling. Do you feel stigmatized?
I don't feel stigmatized.
Okay. If somebody
feel better then.
Yeah,
right. If somebody goes, you can't call you a junkie. Do you feel stigmatized?
No,
you can't use the word junkie.
Then.
Yeah,
can you
I know.
call a millennial a junkie?
So there's not, junkie, Dave, let's explain it. Junkie means a lot of things other than just addicted to opioids.
That's right.
It's a whole mentality.
Yep.
Like you said, it's a community. When I went to the Lower East Side for the first time in 1981, I think, just walking around the village, you would see Dee Dee Ramone and Dr. John and Kitty Bruce, Lenny's daughter, and you would see your icon heroes. And what were they heroes of? They were heroes of seizing life by the throat and living it. And now, junkie doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. It's not Jack Kerouac and Neil Cassidy and Lou Reed and Bob Dylan. It's not that.
Right. It also has an antisocial flair.
Oh,
to it.
Definitely is that.
And it's something that you guys have always worn with pride.
And we reminisce
and Dave
about it.
Agrees.
Dave?
Well, I think when my mother would say junkie, she would talk about like cheap jewelry she would buy on Canal Street, and she'd say, "Oh, that jewelry is very junky," and it'd be funny. But the junkie that you're talking about, it's like there was a currency of cool associated with artistic rock and roll junkies. And I think a lot of people got caught up in aspiring to being one and not expecting the misery that came along with it.
Right, exactly.
So I didn't know whether to tell you. I didn't want to tell everybody. I'm gonna break the news right here. What is Dave, in your and I's culture of junkiedom, who is the king of all junkies?
I would say William Burroughs.
No, there's one higher than that. That's Jesus. Who's God?
Keith Richards?
Rick
Yes.
Salazar agrees.
Keith Richards is your...
Keith Richards.
Rick Salazar on Facebook.
What?
agrees
Yeah.
with that. Bill Burroughs.
Burroughs is above Keith Richards.
No.
I've always just thought Burroughs is at the right hand of God, but God is Keith Richards. Guess who?
Keith, I always saw it as more as the son of God. He was just like a facilitator. Burroughs seemed more like he was in a chair and everybody was coming to bend at his
kissing
feet.
the ring.
So Keith Richards is Jesus.
So Keith Richards is Jesus. So I got to tell you, Dave, this is going to blow your mind. I'm sitting in the McDonald's Playland in Laverne, California, a week ago Friday, a week ago Friday. Sid goes up in those tunnels and she won't come down, and I'm too big and old to get up in there. And so I just finally just give in and just sit there for an hour until she gets tired of it, right? My phone, I look down at my phone and there's a message on Instagram from a friend of mine. And I start reading it. Guess who it's from? Keith Richards.
Oh, my gosh.
How crazy is that?
What did he want to tell you?
What does he say?
Well, I had sent a
Why
text
did you
to
book
this.
him? Jesus.
Susan never misses a beat.
All day long for me.
Wow.
All day long.
Oh, he will?
So
May.
the strangest thing happened. I had texted this friend because it got rumored on the internet, and Nate can attest to this, that Keith Richards had said he stopped drinking.
Okay.
So
Yes. That was a big story.
Yeah, it was a big story. So I sent a text to a mutual friend of his. Is it true Keith stopped drinking? Because Trump's president, anything's possible. That's what I said. He picked up the phone and texted back.
Wow.
And he said yes, that he didn't mean to be some proselytizer, that he did it for his health and vitality and all this kind of stuff, but he didn't want to be a poster boy. And he was talking to me because of us.
Yeah.
Like, he knows what celebrity rehab is. Keith Richards knows what celebrity rehab is, Drew. It's fucking crazy.
Have you talked to him before? Or was that the first time?
Never.
When did this happen?
Last Friday.
I'm surprised you didn't call me immediately.
I didn't know what to do. I was just overwhelmed. I'm getting overwhelmed right now.
Why did you text back and go, how are you doing it?
I texted back. I just said speechless. when Dave, when Jesus texts you, what do? You're just
I don't
frozen.
know. Like it's like I don't know. This whole story is fucking me up. To be honest with you, and it really is because Keith. It's like my buddy. I have this buddy I work with, and he's friendly with like Waddy Wachell and Leland Sklar and all those guys, right? You know what I'm talking about, Bob? Those guys who played on those records.
Yeah, on the Keith Richards solo records.
Yeah, they all played on the Winos records, and they played a show at the Iridium, and my buddy invited me to go, and he said he went, and Keith was there. And I just stopped in my tracks because it's like, I just love Keith so much,
Me
like
too.
in so many ways.
Me
and
too.
just to hear that he texted you, Bob, I'm just amazed that I know you. Thank you for letting me know.
I know. And you didn't
I-
even call me.
I don't
So
wanna-
for
I
all of
don't
you
want-
who feel that they're being stigmatized by being around the word junkie, they are in heaven around junkie.
Okay.
Wait,
So
I
you
just
just send me
want to
his
say
details.
part of the text because I don't want to exploit it and go on.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But he writes. He said something so poetic. This is what he said. Anyway, he sent me. Look at all the texts. Drew, look at them all.
Wow.
He would say.
How much did he
something,
send you?
Oh my
and then
God,
Dude,
quite a
send
bit.
yourself that phone number quick. that
No,
over
but
here.
let me read
This is
him the
all him?
poetic one.
Is that
Just
all
take a
him?
snapshot. and
Let
send
me
it to
read
yourself.
the poetic thing that Dave is just going to touch your heart, Dave, as to his feelings about drinking. He says he doesn't regret it, right? But then he says, but I do regret that my soul was lonely, that my heart was empty, that
Whoa.
kind of thing.
Whoa.
I regret that I felt like I had to drink every day. That,
Whoa.
in capital letters, I regret.
Wow.
Fucking
Oh my
A.
God.
So
Dave, are you conscious right now? Should you sit down for a second?
what's going on with him? Yeah, I need
I'm
to
so
know more.
amazed. I'm so impressed and amazed. No, I'm really
Good for
because
him.
I remember
Right.
he was on Marin,
now-
But he
was
doesn't
on
want to
Marin's
be the
show.
poster.
Bob.
What?
Dave's talking.
Dave, go.
Hold on, real quick. He was on Marin's show, and Marin was talking about the end of his using heroin,
Right.
and Keith said, I would hate to lose my band over this shit. You know, that's the way he described it with dope.
Right.
But he didn't give up drinking, and when he talks about loneliness, and it's Keith, it's just like, oh my God. You know, it's just beautiful and scary and sad. Because he must have been very lonely for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and I just, you know, so this stigma of calling people junkies or drug addicts or whatever, the greatest people, the most sensitive people, the most amazing people, the funniest people I've ever known in my life are junkies and alcoholics.
Right.
And, you know what I mean?
We know.
And yeah, some of them can be a bit boorish,
You got to
but
get me that phone number.
anyways, I just wanted to
this is a
talk to
long
you because it's been about 6 months since Chris died. Is that how long it's been?
God. Get sick.
Let's think.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
almost
in
a year.
July. So yeah, we're coming up on that.
Yeah. So usually, you know, I've had a very close friend like him to you, to me, and it goes in cycles. Everyone else stops talking about it and stops thinking about it, and then it's just Dopey Dave, and then it'll be kind of forgotten that Chris was the co-host of it, right? But you'll
Right. Well, I
part
make
of
a
you-
point. I make a point of him every episode.
Yeah, but part of you
know?
will never forget, and you're going to go through these grieving problems over and over again. It went on for years for me with this one death, right? And you gotta live up to the moments that come, Dave. You can't slump them off, right?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Well, like I was at a fundraiser one time, and the guy's brother was there. And I could have just avoided him the whole time and stayed on different side of the room, right? But I felt like this is the moment the universe is giving to me to make it right, to make it as right as I can, right? So what happened with Chris's death, I felt, was there was a lot of people were very much, he didn't do anything wrong, he didn't do anything bad, he was a good person type of thing,
Really?
right? Whereas where you couldn't really talk about Chris in a realistic way. Do you understand what I'm saying, Dave?
Yeah, I do.
So Chris had a lot of devotees. You know, Drew?
Big time. A lot of Chris worship. Way
Mike-
more Chris fans than Dave fans in the Dopey Nation.
Right.
I have to say.
And so I made
Yeah.
the mistake of saying he was an asshole when I was talking to, you know, one of them.
Yeah.
And, oh, my God.
Well, he was certainly
What
an
did they
asshole.
say?
It's like, hey, don't say that. Hey, that's not cool.
Well, he was an asshole when we knew him back at the hospital. He was really woo, but that was in his disease. Is that what you meant?
But I mean, he was an asshole in that he's one of us. He's like Dave and me.
Yeah.
Right? He's not like you.
No.
He was trying to act like you.
Oh.
And
he wanted to be like Dr.
He wanted
Drew.
to be you
did.
rather than be me, which I took personally.
You should. You totally should.
That's funny.
But you understand, and I think people tried to confront it a little bit, but the people who were believing he was you, they didn't really know him.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying, Dave?
I knew. Not a junkie.
But he was his.
It's complicated.
His illness, the course of his illness was world class.
Right.
He was not a simple junkie. He was a world class user.
World class.
That just means you have a lot of resources.
maybe. But he used
if a real junkie has
them.
Resources, they can become that.
Okay, I'll grant you that.
All
But I felt like the reason I became a Chris devotee is I felt like he understood what that was. He really understood
objectively about himself.
He really understood where he'd taken himself with that, and that's what I admired. But that didn't make him any less of a junkie.
But I think it's going to be hard for. I just want you to just confront whatever comes along, right, Dave? Because you're alive.
I mean,
and he's
I
dead.
do. With Chris, when he was alive, I would tell him he was full of shit every episode.
Right.
Because he was, and he would like put on this whole talk about like he would put on Dr. Drew talk. He would put on the talk from school, and I would be like, "You're so full of shit." And then he would always cop to being full of shit. And that's how I knew he was okay.
Right, exactly.
And then in the end, he stopped copying to be full of shit, and he stopped going to meetings, and he replaced his spiritual program with a program of psychobabble.
Right. Yeah.
And it destroyed him. And with Chris, I love Chris and I miss Chris, and like Dopey is doing better and better. And I don't have a day that I don't wish he was alive, and I'm not angry that he doesn't get to do it with me because I prefer to do it with him,
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I told you guys, my other best friend died over the summer and he was like a victim. Chris knew better. Chris could do everything right. It was right in his grasp not to fuck this up. So I'm still kind of angry about it.
Well, but you also know how bad his disease was, and he needed his sober peers calling him out constantly because his bullshit thinking will take over. And if you're not there confronting him, if he's not going to meetings, if he's not checking in with somebody, it took over.
Well, I didn't know when I was on Dopey a couple times, and you can go back and look for it, Dave, because I said when Chris was talking all that psychobabble, I said, "What are you, a fucking doctor now?"
Well, he was in training,
right?
Yeah.
He was.
Well, I didn't know. I thought he was still the Harasti crazy.
No.
No.
He was getting a PsyD, which I loved. I loved that. But I remember, Dave, didn't you and I and he talk about not letting that become his program or take over? You remember that whole conversation?
In your apartment,
yes, because I was saying,
Chris,
go ahead,
please.
Chris,
you please.
Well, I was just saying, all that great thinking won't do him any good. All that knowledge, if he doesn't also do his program and check, because he's still got his brain, and maybe it can help him in his sort of service to other people and sort of aspects of his recovery.
I think it's important, Dave, to spread the message of if you're a junkie, you're a junkie. And you better be very cautious if you think you can transition into being Dr. Drew. And not remember that you're a junkie constantly, and remember that you have a duality to you.
Hang a second. Bob had that version. Bob had a moment like that too. And so what he started doing was going to the track.
Oh, yeah. So, I like that. To Morongo, to the casino. Right? Yes. Drew's absolutely right. When I started to feel like I'm different, I'm not like all my junkie friends now. I'm the right hand of Dr. Drew. I run a hospital. I started gambling, Dave. I don't know if you know this or not.
No, I didn't. No,
because why wouldn't you? Because why wouldn't you?
Because you're perfect.
You're important now. You can gamble.
Oh, my God.
Right? You can do what you want.
Yeah.
So good. I can't do drugs.
I chose a less deadly vice.
Oh, my God. It's so funny.
Did you see this guy going off on the junkie thing?
Well, hold on.
What are they saying about junkie?
Let me first.
I don't like junkie terms.
I'm seeing lots of problematic stuff here. So let me get to some of it right now. Junkie carries an arrogance to it, they say.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, hold on.
Scroll down.
Okay, hold on. Here's a girl, Katie says, Kaiser doctor told me AA doesn't work. What are your thoughts? There is not only does it work.
Dr. Bruce tell her that.
Yeah, no, not only does it work,
Come on, Bob,
but there's overwhelming evidence. There's about to be a Cochrane analysis published by the head of addiction services at Harvard and Stanford, the two heads of the biggest program, the most erudite academic programs in the country are going to publish this. They've almost got it out. Cochrane analyses are the highest level of meta-analysis review, and they've been telling me that it shows clearly that I don't know the details, so I'll be able to parse out the details.
12-step is equal.
12-step is as good as any other treatment unless abstinence, actual full-blown abstinence is your goal, then it's superior to everything else we have, and it's free. It's free, and it's available everywhere. Term of endearment for Junkie. Hold on a second.
Let's attack the arrogant part.
Okay,
it is arrogant.
So let me go down. I'm going down to Tim. I don't see Tim.
Illicit drug use disorder is the most stigmatized health condition in the world.
Okay. Is illicit use disorder stigmatized?
Yes.
Okay. So calling it a use disorder. Okay.
It's already stigmatizing it.
Calling it a use disorder.
Though. You have to read it.
I can't find it.
But suggesting.
Scroll down.
But that's just new cover that the medical profession is given. So when you say substance use disorder, that suggests that some people use substances orderly, whatever category of drug. So there are people who use methamphetamine orderly and correctively. There are people who use heroin orderly and correctively.
No. Those all would qualify for substance use disorder. They would be sort of mild, intermittent substance use disorder.
But the disorder.
In fact, this is what I like about the new nomenclature is that it picks up people and gives them, a specific kind of diagnosis within the spectrum of addiction.
So are there people that use substances healthily? Because that's what it suggests.
No.
This is the category of people who...
You're misreading it. It's not
substance use disorder, meaning they use substances disorderly, unhealthily.
Right. There's no using any substance without that has addictive potential without the directive of a professional would be considered use disorder.
Right.
So
Should I read this whole thing?
Hang on.
It's a very, very long paragraph, right?
There's two of them, right?
Well, yeah. Go up, start at the bottom and scroll up.
Okay, we'll find it and read it. We're on the
air.
air.
All right, here we go.
We're on the air.
I'll read. I got it. Illicit drug disorder is the most stigmatized condition in the world, with alcohol use disorder not far behind. Among a list of 18 of the most stigmatized conditions internationally, importantly, the degree of stigma is related to the perceived cause of addiction. If perceived not to be someone's fault, stigma is lower. Right, so this is part of the things we always fight is the disease model. And perceived control over the condition, right? If it's perceived not to be under your control, stigma is lower. So the reason stigma is significantly lower than when I first started this is people are beginning to understand that it's outside of their control. Based on your words, you use you're contributing or adding to stigma. Let's see, is this still the same guy? Yeah. Growing up, we all heard sometimes voice the childish refrain, sticks and stones break my bones, but words still never hurt me. But words can and do hurt in ways that we are not aware and cannot always anticipate. Because substance-related conditions are the number one public health concern in the United States, and stigma is a major barrier to access. By the way, stigma is not the barrier to accessing treatment. I have not experienced that. Have you experienced that?
I don't even know what the guy's talking about. So what's his point?
Junkies like to be called junkies. We like it.
His point is that the stigma, this is something I hear all the time, which is stigma is what prevents people from going to treatment. And look,
like the stigma of white...
being called an addict.
But
acknowledging that you have addiction.
But your favorite stigma, which is white, what's privilege?
Yeah.
Is that a stigma?
No, it's not what he's saying.
He's using words to disguise things.
Yeah, no. That they are saying that words are adding to stigma, and I am.
There's nothing more stigmatic than ODing and pooping your pants.
Right, and addicts will use any reason to obfuscate their care. Anything they can pull upon, they will use. And if you start giving them stigma as one of the things they can point at, believe me, they will use it.
Sure.
Life is filled with stigma.
No, did you ever feel stigmatized as a drug addict? Ever? Even when you were in your really bad days.
No, but railing against stigma, okay.
Well, I'm up to rail against stigma because, like the obsessive-compulsive disorder patients, they get stigmatized. Hoarders, stigmatized. Schizophrenics, stigmatized.
Republicans, stigmatized.
But
they are.
Mental health people.
Mental health disorders generally are stigmatized. But I think the idea that addiction is stigmatized is
You're living in Aztecian times, and we're talking about stigmas for mental health. It's ridiculous. Does this guy live in the United States of America right now?
It's a professional.
Try being a person who tries to talk reasonably about anything in America. You're stigmatized as being too liberal or too conservative, right? The whole society stigmatizes. And the idea of saying, drug addicts are stigmatized.
This guy is quoting John Kelly, who I've spoken to at length about this.
Another stigmatized person.
Yeah,
no,
he
he's not.
Said 89% of illicit drug use is non-problematic.
That's not.
And he says that AA doesn't work.
Yeah, well, if he wants to quote John Kelly, you better get me in line with John Kelly on that one. But
it's not a treatment. Stuff is not a treatment.
So 11% of us, Dave. Let's get back to reality on planet Uranus, where we live. So 11% of the population who uses drugs are junkies, and we like being called junkies, and we're cool with it. So don't worry about us, and don't worry about stigmatizing us. Go defend the 89% of the people that use Adderall, benzodiazepine, prescription opioids,
alcohol,
and don't want to be called addicts. Go deal with them, sir.
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah.
Those guys don't want to be called
There's a solution there.
Wait, what are those guys? Which population?
What ASAM called pseudo addicts. That's he doesn't and really it is race. White suburban people don't like being called drug addicts. Right?
Maybe.
White politicians don't like calling white suburban people drug addicts.
Maybe.
They don't mind calling black urban people drug addicts and murderers and rapists.
That's certainly historically
so
true.
that it sounds somewhere in that thing, but I'm not talking to the 89%. I'm talking to the 11%. And they're fine with it, and that's my people, and that's who we're describing as junkies.
But who is in that 89% population? Those are mild drug users, substance use disorder?
Some who have died, which is interesting. Chris was a premier, top-tier drug user, right?
Right.
My friend who died, I don't even think was a drug addict. He just was abusing drugs and died.
So maybe the point is well taken for people that are not actually addicts. They're just sort of what we call iatrogenic addicts caused by my profession. Maybe those people are the ones complaining about the stigma.
Yeah.
Because they are really addicts.
Fine, and treatment doesn't work as
well
for them for sure.
Right.
So I would say, maybe that you need to go off and form your own modality to treat those people.
So maybe this is something you and I have been talking a bit about, that it's getting a little blurry who the people are like we used to always treat.
It can't go from 3 to 5% of the population to 20% of the population in one generation, and the solutions are for those 3 to 5%. I think a proper assessment and saying, listen, you're an addict, go to this. You're a pseudo addict, go to that.
You should be aware that there are a number of people that who looked like an addict.
Are you gambling, Dave? He sounds like he's at a casino.
He's chopping corned beef.
No, I'm getting to my dad's apartment, so it's warm now. But I want to say something really quickly.
Before you do it, let me finish this thought.
Wouldn't you say
hang on, Dave.
Let me
finish
that
one thought.
Separates these people? It's like when the fucking pseudo addict, when the casual pill taker, when the consequences get bad enough and they find themselves fucked, that's when they're addicts and they say, I am an addict.
But
when they have
I think
to.
the ultimate fucking is when they migrate to heroin and intravenous heroin use.
Correct. But I would argue, Dave, that within the population of people that get strung out on drugs because of their relationship with the medical system, there are people that that don't go to heroin, can stop using, and they look like an addict, and they might even be benefited from formal addiction treatment. Things like cognitive behavioral therapy be very effective for them. That they stop, and that's it. They stay stopped, and I've seen a lot of that.
Yes.
And when I started seeing it,
They don't stop the benzos, though.
No.
That's the thing.
No, they
stop
everything.
the opioids.
Stop everything. And I got confused by it because early in the epidemic, I was like, "What? Who are these people?"
Anxiety starts to creep up with those people. I know the ones you're talking about. They end up back at the doctor 3 to 5 years.
Oh, well, that's a different issue, that they may have some underlying psychiatric problem for which they have some unregulated emotion.
Anxiety is widespread. It's everywhere.
Anxiety is everywhere. But yes, and they could be – so within that population of people that are pill users that are brought on by a relation with the medical system, some of them have a moderate genetic burden and some have almost no genetic burden.
Right.
And this is what I admire about the new nomenclature, which is it's trying to parse out who fits into what category by looking at the patterns of use. And that makes perfect sense to me. But to do it because of stigma makes no sense to me.
Well, I don't think that. Well, because for the last 10 years since the Parity Act and Obamacare, yes, those people were stigmatized to have to go to cry help and rehab centers.
And they weren't really addicts.
They're not, personality-wise, they're not addicts.
Okay, so maybe that's, biologically, they're not addict the way we like to qualify.
I think the recovery industry made billions of dollars treating them with a treatment that wasn't going to work for them. I'm fine with them going to other treatments as long as it's held as accountable as the drug and alcohol treatment centers are. It's a little vague as to what people are getting in CBT. When they put on some, the people we've had on here with the you get an implant and then you get therapy. What is the therapy? Who's doing it? What are the laws to that? What is really going on there?
Well, if you look at the National Institute of Health website, they list about 12 different kinds of therapy that are appropriate and indicated.
How frequent is it? What's the intensity of it?
Correct. And
nobody really defines that.
Correct. And all of them are completely different. So when I looked at that, I was like, oh, my God.
I know people that are seeing a therapist once a month on the implants, once a month, and they talk to somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
That's not treatment.
No, that's
But if you're charging $5,000 a month for that because that's the market that's available, it's cheaper than abstinence-based drug treatment that's $14,000 a month. Jesus. I'm always concerned about the buck in America.
This part of the story is always reprehensible to me. Dave,
what are you doing, buddy? David?
The microphone went out on your end or something.
Oh, okay.
No, it was on your end.
Are you making some food? Are you cooking up a spoon right now? Are you hot?
It sounded like. Take a break. I'll come right back. Well, CBDs are everywhere, right? Everyone's talking about them, and it's a topic that I get asked about all the time. Bottom line on CBD, although there are way more claims made about them, the clinical evidence right now, it's not all that clear, but many people are using it and reporting great results, and they are very encouraging. So I want to first define exactly what I'm talking about here. CBD is cannabidiol, an extract from hemp. While you might associate with marijuana, CBD does not cause reinforcement. It is not the reinforcing component of hemp, but it is what's responsible for the calming or some of the relaxing effects that many people experience, not the high. Now about the products. There are a ton of them on the market today. For getting the vast array of the reported health benefits, it's important to be aware of what you're buying. I was recently introduced to a company called Select CBD, an Oregon-based company that focuses on high-quality ingredients and manufacturing standards, not the hype. Their CBD-based products are available in a wide range of formulations and flavors, each of which is described to you so you can make an informed decision without all those promises that are probably too good to be true. Like I said, the reported benefits of CBD by individuals using this are very compelling. I'm excited to see how things develop as the science catches up with this booming industry. As usual, the public is ahead of the science. I can't make explicit claims yet, but boy, the reports are pretty encouraging. So if you're ready to try CBD, I encourage you to check out Select CBD. To learn more, go to drdrew.com/select. That's on my site, drdrew.com/SELECT. And for a limited time, you can save 25% at checkout with the code DRDREW, DRDREW. Again, drdrew.com/select, and then the code DRDREW. Well, it's hard to believe a year has passed since one of the worst cold and flu seasons on record, but here we are again. So if you happen to catch a bug, one thing every doctor will tell you is stay hydrated. Proper hydration eases a lot of the symptoms of many of these viral illnesses, and sports drinks, water alone, is not the issue. You need to be aggressive. You need something like Hydralyte, full fluid replacement. Hydralyte is this oral rehydration product you've heard me talking about. It's better than anything out there. It delivers the right balance of sodium, glucose, and water, providing up to 4 times the electrolytes sports drinks can offer, all with 75% less sugar. So think about that. It's like taking an IV by mouth. But my favorite thing is at the convenience. I'm always on the run, so I use the effervescent tablets. You just drop them in a water bottle or even a glass of water. I literally never leave home without them. No one in my family does, for that matter. And because Hydrolite is appropriate for all ages, it's perfect for the little snowman amongst you when they come home from the school, perhaps sniffling. Hydrolite comes in great flavors, orange, berry, and lemonade, available in a premixed drink, a powder, or, like I said, those fizzy tablets. I love those. They go everywhere. Come in a little tube. Every package includes easy-to-follow dosing instructions. Order your supply today at hydrolite.com/DRDREW. For a limited time, you can save 30%. We use the code at checkout, DRDREW18. That's Dr. Drew 18. So either click through on our banner at drdrew.com or go to hydrolite.com/Dr. Drew and then use that code, Dr. Drew 18.
No,
so tell us
something happened when you guys started talking about nomenclature and parsing out shit, and the mic went very, very quiet.
Okay, so let me ask you this:
well,
Are you?
Bob was talking anyways.
Are you going to ever move back to New York City?
He's in New York City.
No, he's not. He lives in Connecticut.
I don't think so. Unless I get really wealthy, I don't see it.
Yeah. Is there no like out?
It's in the city.
Out past Chinatown on that peninsula out there, I heard there's cheap apartments out there. You know,
my wife loves living where we live.
Oh,
my daughter loves living where we live. We just bought a house. It's nice. I need to be really, really rich in order to make them move to Manhattan. Dopey needs to be like the new Live with Regis and Kathy Lee.
You just reached 1 million downloads. Did you know that, Drew?
Wow.
Dopey just had 1 million downloads.
Good for you, Dave. Good for you, man.
He did.
Are you excited about that?
What happened to the mic? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
It's not the mic. It's your headset or something because we got you all loud and clear.
Plug your headset in better.
I'm plugged in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wait, you can't hear us?
He can't. He can hear us. No,
he doesn't hear us well. I don't think. All right, Dave. Do we have to let Dave go? Is that what's happening?
It's not working. It's technically not working.
Let him talk.
All right, Dave. Here, I want to let you. Can you hear me?
We're gonna have to.
You cannot hear me.
A little bit.
All right, I want to talk about another topic, you guys. We went way down a rabbit hole here, and that is the issue. Like I was doing a podcast here a couple podcasts ago. And I spent about 10 minutes looking for our Facebook Live feed, right? Because we do a Facebook Live when we're doing these things. And so I'm on my phone looking for the feed. And when I get to the Facebook Live, there's all these entries. How dare you? How dare you? He's always looking at his phone. He's not listening, blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's because of Adam.
Hold on. And they quoted that. And they quoted Catherine Wood. And they quoted everybody that I'm too much on my phone. I was like, I'm looking for your feed so I can get your questions so I can see what's going on. And then I thought, I would never occur to me to say something like that to somebody on a feed.
Yeah,
how judgmental. True. And then this is the part that bothers me. We're mind reading. We're always trying to mind read the other person. I know what he's doing. He's being distracted. He doesn't care about us. You can't read people's minds. You can't do it. And stop it, everybody. Stop assuming that you know when you see something on TV what the people are thinking. That is the most primitive danger. That's as dangerous as acting out your judgmentalism and your outrage and your envy, which is really what this is all about anyway. But acting out envy is the most destructive thing people can do. We're doing it all the time.
That's all social media exists
all
for.
It is, but we do it on the most primitive level is what I want to point out because they were just trying to read my mind, that my mind was distracted or I was doing something more important.
Drew. All right.
No, this is a serious issue.
I like this. I like this. Dr. Drew, you're kind of blasting your audience. I really like it.
Well, I'm not blasting my audience.
My audience too.
And I would argue it's not these guys' fault.
Fucking cocksuckers. They think they're reading my mind all the time. They want to come on the stupid show, these guys.
Well,
anyways, continue.
Let's let Dave talk for like 10 minutes.
All right, but I'll let Dave talk.
He's finally in a quiet place now. He's not.
All right, but I don't want to take issue with our viewers at present because they're no different than anybody else. We're all doing that.
It's a mentality.
We're all doing that. So go ahead, Dave. Talk about it.
What do you want me to say?
Well, you just went through it. I'll guide you. I'll guide you.
You guys
Dave.
are doing good. I love you, and I appreciate you having me on.
No.
Unless you have a question.
No, I've got a question for you because when Chris died, a lot of people had ownership of him. And they tried to dictate to you what Dopey was, what Dopey needed to be. You'll notice I never did that. None of the people in Don't Die ever tried to do that to you, tell you what to do. But there was a lot of people telling you what to do. I think that's the busybody telling people what they have to say and what to do and reading their minds and criticizing. That's rampant in our society. And my dad taught me, you don't like something, switch the channel. Why are you listening to something that frustrates you?
In my experience with my audience is mostly like the best. Like I love the 99% of the fans. And I have to say, it's kind of exactly what we're talking about. The sober members of my audience, they're just like, do your thing. We like what you do. If we don't like it, we won't listen, whatever. The people who are doing drugs are like, that's not dopey. That's not dopey enough. I don't like, you should do this. And I'm just like, motherfucker, if you don't like what I'm doing, go make a fucking podcast. Good luck. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I make the show. If Chris and I made the show and we called it Dopey. Chris died. So whatever I do now is called Dopey. And like, you like it or you don't like it, but I'm just going to keep making the show.
Well, yeah, that it was more than 1%. You're saying it's 1% of your audience. It's more like 10%.
No, I mean, I think
it's
that
like 10%.
I think it's people who use. I think people who are on drugs want the show to be way, like, they don't like the recovery as much as they like the war stories. And that's fine. But the war stories don't exist on Dopey without the recovery, especially in the wake of Chris's death. Am I retarded that I'm going to like make jokes about using when one of my best friends just died, the person who I made the show with? If I don't have any ownership of the fact that he died in a Dopey story and I don't like that, it's not the same show. It can't be. He died from it.
Everybody gets that criticism that you're talking about.
But I'm more worried. No, you know what? It's not the criticism I'm aiming at. I'm worried about what's going on with all of us. That's what we think we should be doing, or that's where our envy is taking us. You talk about a spiritual vacuum that speaks about massive pathology throughout the land. We're letting envy overtake us, and is the most destructive emotions people have.
Why did that lesson my dad said, if you don't like it, turn it off? Why did that stick with me since I was 8 years old?
Because that's the invisible hand. That's Adam Smith's marketplace. Now the new version of that be?
Kill that person that you don't like.
If you don't like it, destroy it.
Yeah.
That's envy.
Where did that?
That's envy. That's narcissism.
But what was my dad describing?
Normal economic behavior of humans.
So, Dr. Drew, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
How is it envious? Explain that to me.
Envy is an emotion that when you see something in somebody else that you don't have or you'd like to have or makes you feel diminished in any way, the impulse is, I have to bring them down. As opposed to, I'm jealous of them. I'm going to have to work harder to get what they have. That pisses me off. I don't like them anymore. I'm not going to watch them. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But I'm going to work hard to get that. You never see that.
Motivation.
What you see is destroy. And then black-white thinking. People are all evil or all good. That is, what do you call that kind of thinking? But where would we encounter that?
Infants.
Well, splitting. All good, all bad.
Borderline.
All good, all bad. That's the way people think today.
But happy, sad, good, bad.
All good, evil, yes.
The way the great Roland Kim, my therapist of many years, used to describe it as infantile society.
Correct. Well, and that's what and some narcissism is, as some people would argue, is a form of arrest, developmental arrest, because of a narcissistic injury early on, and you don't develop a flexible capacity to regulate in the world and see the world as gray as it actually is.
And don't you think the society was healthier, say in the 40s, 50s, 60s?
No matter what,
regulated
no matter what
abnormalities better, and now the whole thing is just out of control.
Fill in the blank after, don't you think society was healthier when? Whatever you put in there, the answer is yes. Whatever you add in there, it's yes. so
really? 70s? Your hated decade?
No, the 70s are the reason we have this problem, is what I think. But I really believe the only time I can find where it's been this bad is pre-revolutionary France. There must be others. We'll talk about it. But there must be other historical periods. But I definitely see it then. And things don't go well. Things don't go well when people.
And I just noticed, I try not to pay attention, but there was a lot of people I felt dictating to Dave what Dopey was.
Correct.
Right?
Right, because it's about me, man.
But the Chris dying was the catalyst of them doing that. Were they doing that before, Dave?
Not so much, but it was a much different show before he died. You know what I mean? It didn't matter. We didn't give a shit about the show in the same way. The show was me and him talking, and then he would tell me he was editing it, but he wouldn't do anything, and he would put it up. And that was the show, and people were just happy to hear us talk.
And to be fair, whenever anybody dies around anybody, humans instinctively have this very primitive, what'd you do? It's your fault.
Right.
If somebody dies of depression in a family, what'd that family do? It's just a weird thing that
I do
humans
that sometimes.
Yeah, it's not okay. It's not good. You gotta
I
check
don't
yourself.
act on it, but
no,
I think
but check
that.
yourself. I
think that.
I get it, and it's normal, but it's not
Well,
good.
I have a thing about all the fathers that are advocating drug treatment because their children died of it. I just have a real problem with that. But getting back to Dopey. So here's something I want to help you a little bit, relieve some of your guilt, Dave. You have Dr. Drew right here. He's going to be your therapist for a moment.
I don't have guilt. What are you kidding me? I have Jewish guilt.
Dopey is way more popular now that Chris died.
Well,
how does Dave deal with that?
Well, let me just tell you, one of the things I just heard that Dave cannot tolerate is guilt. so don't do that to him. He can't tolerate it. I just heard that. Am I right, Dave?
Dave, come on now.
I mean, like, I was raised by guilt.
I understand.
Guilt was like my third
I
parent.
understand that, and it may have
my third parent. He said,
and I understand that. And as I hear you, I'm thinking that may have something to do with the heroin, and you have nothing to do with it now.
Well, I think that's an interesting question, though, what Bob asked me, because I do, like, there is some fucked up, annoying factor in Dopey's popularity growing in the wake of Chris's death.
Is that crazy?
Like that
it makes
bothers
sense.
me.
It makes sense in some weird way.
It makes sense in a weird way because it's dramatic and people like drama. It's a story and people like that. And let's be fair, a lot of us have put Dave out there more now because we're affected by it and we want to talk about it.
It's a story. It's a story.
Yeah, it's a narrative, and people heard about it, and we're shocked by it, and we want to talk about it.
It's not because he's dead. It's because it was probably more interesting to hear about the show, and
it's a story. It's a narrative, and we were all affected by it, and we're all talking about it, and that puts it out there. So.
Can we now? Because it's been
I've been promoting the crap out of him.
Okay, Dave, it's my wife that did it for you.
It's the greatest podcast about drugs that I know of. Yeah. But here's the thing. Well, no, ours is about medicine and treatment.
Yeah, yours is different. Yours is a better podcast.
But let me tell you this: the 6 months is time enough, I think, to really talk honestly about it. The moment I saw it via text, I was like, "Motherfucker!" Started believing his own bullshit.
Yes,
that's what I thought.
I had the same reaction too.
What did you think,
so
Dave?
How suddenly they just die.
I honestly didn't. It took me a day to believe it.
Yeah.
I still struggle with the reality of it because I'm just furious that he lied. You know, like the lie.
Wait a minute, slow down.
Junkies.
Wait a minute.
What's the rule of junkies? Ashley's here. Rule
Never
number 1: lie always.
No, here's how I do it with
Ashley
my
Hamilton is here.
Yes,
can I talk? I don't know. Dave, this is your guilty conscience talking.
Oh God,
it's your fault.
and here's the way I would approach it. Whenever somebody says something like that, I go, Dave, what? A junkie lied? Are you kidding me? Oh my God, a junkie lied? Holy crap, Dave, that's crazy.
That's not my point. That's not my point.
His point is that he was lying to Dave, and for a year, I believe. That argument I had with him about psychobabble, he was like, I don't know psychobabble. I worked for Los Encinas for 9 years. I know psychobabble upwards and downwards and forwards, and Chris was trying to throw psychobabble around, right? And we had this kind of confrontation about it.
Yeah.
You were able to get him, what you just said earlier in the podcast, to get him to admit that it was psychobabble and bullshit. And at
all the time.
But at a certain point, you couldn't get him to agree to be that amiable about it anymore.
Right, because he stopped going to meetings.
Right.
And he was gone, and he was using. The reason, this is why, like, of course, junkies lie. Of course, you shouldn't trust active users. But the reason that Dopey was good was because we were actually friends. And we were actually honest with each other. And we actually talked about stuff in our life. So, like, the fact that he didn't tell me about it, that bothered me. And I also confronted him about it. I did not confront him about the fact that I thought he was using. I did.
Well, let's reframe it. I'm going to bet that some of your feeling of anger is sort of guilt that you didn't push harder because you knew it on some level.
I'm annoyed that I didn't know it more than I knew it. And hey, Ashley. Ashley's my new best friend. Ashley's on Dopey. Ashley fucking killed it on Dopey this week. He killed it. You guys should It was amazing.
We're gonna have.
I'm good, buddy. It's good to hear your voice.
It's a little tease for the next podcast, but one of the all-time great drug addicts in Chris' category, I would say, is going to be a guest on the next podcast.
Ashley's worse
than Chris, and Chris is dead. Ashley, you should wake up.
Well, I'm not actively using today, and I try not to let anything get to my head, man. Look, I don't want anything to get in my head. That's a bad place.
All right.
That's the thing too, because it talks about so much where, like, it says, it's like the ego, such, that whole silly saying, like the ego is not our amigo and all this stuff, but like that struggle as seeking spiritual principles and then having to be in a business sometimes that throws all this stuff at you. You have to like stay so steady, not letting that get your head, because I've seen it with so many people. When my friend Adam Goldstein died, DJ Am, I sponsored him.
We were talking about.
I sponsored him for years. I was so close with that guy.
Me too. And
I remember he said to me, and then he said to me, like, when everything started happening, he goes, "It's so hard because everybody's saying yes to me and giving me everything I want, and it's so hard to stay, like, have that humility."
Right size.
And he was struggling with it, and he knew it.
Right
sized.
He's trying to say right size,
but Dave.
See, I never had that problem. Nobody ever wanted to give me fucking anything. Like, I want a little DJ Am's problem. What the fuck?
But AM was another doctor created thing.
Yeah, but Dave's guilt is this.
Well, yeah.
That I believe for most of the Dopey thing, you kept him in reality. Your friendship, you're calling him on his bullshit, the no holds barred approach to the show. At a certain point, he got so sick, it didn't center him in reality anymore.
Did he have a new relationship or something? Because that's
he'd had it for a while. I mean, what's new to
you?
You've been married for how long?
For a year. He was with her for a year.
Yeah.
New
and
relationship.
I still talk to her. I think I feel guilty that, like, I felt like he was sick of my bullshit. And I felt guilty for constantly giving it to him. Yeah, and then it didn't save him.
I met you
think
on Friday.
I do feel
I'm
guilty about all that. What did he say? What did you say?
He said he met you on Friday and he's tired of your bullshit. This is what we do. We take the wind out of each other's sails. Everybody asks me, I'm 23. I'll be 23 years sober in a month. If I make it. And the fact is, everybody says, well, how have you worked and been on television and done this and blown your anonymity and stayed sober? It's my friends. Dave and you and I have talked about this. There are friends of mine who don't like Celebrity Rehab, don't like that I blew my anonymity, tell me all the time, and keep me right size. So reality is there whenever I would drift away, right? And people, I think, put too much emphasis on a sponsor's responsibility to do that. No, it's the whole community of my home group that's done that in one way or another. And when somebody's attacked me too harshly and criticized me too much, the other guys pick me up and say, fuck him, don't listen to him, you're great, you've helped a lot of people. Being a part of that 12-step community keeps you breathing, Drew.
Yeah, I get
it keeps you breathing.
Listen, I understand.
And
I don't know if I told this story before, but I just want to say it because, I mean, Ashley, you're going to be a much better guest on the show than I was, so I look forward to hearing your appearance.
I'm glad you set the bar real low for me then, so I can't bomb in.
But real quick, I don't know if I told you this story, Drew, Dr. Drew. I think a week before Chris died, and Bob had come on the show, I think three or four times over the years, doing us a favor, being generous, always saying nice shit about Dopey. And I'm walking home from Katz's to the train, and I look at the phone, and the phone's ringing, and it's fucking Bob Forrest calling me up. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I answer the phone, and it's Bob. And Bob says, Dave, I'm calling you because one of my friends just died, and I think it's really important that you get the message of don't die, and you integrate it into Dopey, because too many people are dying. Mm-hmm. Okay. He called me literally the week that Chris died to tell me that out of the ether, out of no place. We talked for like an hour about our kids, about addiction, about this and that. And then 2 days later, me and Chris are recording Dopey. Okay. And Chris is high as shit. Chris is the highest he ever was on Dopey, like barely paying attention. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, and I'm realizing that Chris is fading out. And I say to Chris, Chris, by the way, you know who just called me yesterday? And he goes, who? And I said, Bob Forrest. And he goes, wow, what did he want? And he said, he told me to quit Dopey and do a TV show with him about sobriety. It's called Dave and Bob. Take over Netflix. And Chris goes, wow. He goes, well, I wish you a lot of luck. And I said, what the fuck is wrong with you? I said, I'm joking. He goes, oh, that's really great that Bob wants to do a TV show. He was so high that he believed the story, and like, it was just so sad, but it was also so crazy that you just plucked the whole thing out of the ether. And I think that is pretty intuitive and nuts. Isn't that crazy, Dr. Drew?
I hear and see shit like that all the time in recovery. Way more beyond.
So it's not crazy.
Well beyond my ability to explain with my scientific mind. Okay.
Right.
So, all right, Dave, we got to wrap this up.
See, Dave, I sorted that TM stuff out for you, so make sure you email the girl.
Yeah.
Definitely. Jai Guru Deva, I'm in.
All right,
Count me in.
Jai Guru.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, buddy. So there we go, Bob.
Great to see you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
All right, that's about it for this episode of This Life. Thanks for listening and subscribing on your favorite platforms. Rate us 5 stars and tell a friend. Also be sure to visit drdrew.com for the latest news. We'll tell you where you can find all of our health-related content, including the latest in-depth series, The History of Opium. You can now listen to it on the Weekly Infusion podcast. We have some great and very interesting and appropriate interviews with key historical players in the history of opium. We're excited about our newest podcast, Dr. Drew After Dark, which has been described as a dark web reboot of Loveline. It's the hottest guest spot for all the most popular comedians. Beware, it is for a mature audience. It is kind of a reboot of Loveline. You can hear the episodes first in a podcast form Thursday. Then on Friday, you can watch all the video episodes when the YouTube page drops on the Your Mom's House YouTube channel. New episodes every week. Subscribe, tell a friend. Also on Doctor.com, you can find Swole Patrol, our health and fitness podcast with Mike Catherwood. If you want something a bit more refined that will expand your intellectual horizons, please subscribe to the Dr. Drew podcast, where I feature a wide variety of very interesting and important guests. Get in-depth interviews there. Last but not least, me and Adam and Dr. Drew Show podcast. It's a lot of fun, and we are still together, and you can get it 5 days a week. So go to drdrew.com. Please tell a friend, and we thank you for it. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.